Picture a civilization not bound by the limits of Earth, where beings of pure energy and synthetic intelligence drift between the stars, reshaping entire planets with a thought. This isn't just science fiction anymore. It's a future that might be closer than we realize. For the first time in history, humanity stands on the brink of something extraordinary, a transformation so profound it could redefine what it even means to be human. What happens when we shed our biological constraints and become a spacefaring species? What wonders or terrors await us among the stars? Think about the world just 200 years ago. Steam engines were cutting edge, and the idea of flying across oceans was a fantasy. Now we're decoding the human genome, merging minds with machines, and sending probes beyond our solar system. The pace of change is accelerating faster than ever, and the next leap into a post-human existence could rewrite everything we know. Imagine cities floating in the clouds of Venus, minds uploaded into quantum networks, or entire civilizations thriving in the icy depths of Europa's oceans. The possibilities are as endless as the cosmos itself. This isn't just about new gadgets or faster rockets. It's about evolution on a scale we've never seen. Over the next half hour, we'll uncover 28 ways humanity could transform, from biological upgrades that let us breathe in alien atmospheres, to societies governed by artificial superintelligence, to the startling truth about whether we'll even recognize ourselves in 1,000 years. Buckle up, we're about to explore the most thrilling, unsettling, and awe-inspiring question of our time. What will we become when the stars are ours to claim? The human body evolved over millions of years for life on Earth, but what happens when we step into the void? Space doesn't care about our biology. Its relentless radiation, crushing gravity wells, and airless emptiness demand radical changes if humanity is to survive long-term beyond our cradle. Right now, astronauts on the International Space Station experience muscle atrophy, bone loss, and even vision changes after just months in microgravity. Now imagine generations born and raised in spinning orbital habitats or under the pale light of Proxima Centauri. Evolution won't wait. Natural selection could sculpt our descendants into something astonishing. On low-gravity worlds like Mars, bodies might stretch taller and thinner, bones becoming more porous like a bird's to conserve calcium. Circulatory systems could rewire themselves to prevent blood pooling in zero-G, while skin might darken permanently to shield against unfiltered cosmic rays. Some scientists speculate we'd develop entirely new organs, maybe radiation-absorbing melanin clusters or gill-like filters for processing alien atmospheres. And that's just the passive changes. Genetic engineering could accelerate this transformation exponentially. CRISPR and synthetic biology let us edit our own blueprint, splicing in extremophile DNA from Earth's toughest organisms. Picture communities on Europa's ice sheets with antifreeze proteins in their blood, or Titan settlers whose cells metabolize liquid methane, the real game changer. Epigenetic tweaks that activate dormant survival traits within decades, not millennia. We're already experimenting with telomere regeneration to combat aging in space, where cellular decay accelerates. Such breakthroughs could make 200-year lifespans commonplace. But here's the unsettling twist: divergence. Isolated colonies light years apart would adapt to wildly different environments. Over centuries, Mars-born humans might struggle to visit Earth's crushing gravity without exoskeletons, while deep space nomads could lose the ability to walk entirely. Linguistic drift split Latin into French and Spanish. Biological drift could carve humanity into entirely new species. Some futurists argue this is inevitable, even desirable. After all, monotony never fueled evolution. The cosmos demands variety. Yet for all these physical shifts, the psychological transformation might cut deeper. Extended lifespans could reshape our perception of time. while altered neurochemistry in low G might birth new forms of creativity or madness. Imagine raising children who have never felt wind or seen an unfiltered sunset. Their concept of normal would be as alien to us as our cities would seem to a medieval peasant. This isn't just about surviving space. It's about deciding what aspects of being human we're willing to sacrifice and what thrives when Earth's constraints fall away. Biological evolution moves at a glacial pace, but technology operates at the speed of thought. If humanity hopes to conquer the stars, we may need to embrace cybernetic enhancements not as optional upgrades, but as vital tools for survival. Picture a surgeon on Mars performing delicate operations with robotic fingers calibrated for low gravity, or a deep space navigator whose enhanced eyes detect cosmic radiation like a second spectrum of light. This isn't about convenience, it's about fundamental adaptation. The vacuum doesn't negotiate. Start with the nervous system. Neural implants could become as routine as vaccinations, protecting astronauts from the cognitive decline caused by prolonged isolation and cosmic rays. Early prototypes already allow paralyzed patients to control robotic limbs with their thoughts. Now imagine that tech refined for zero-G construction crews. A worker might mentally command a swarm of repair drones while their biological hands remain free for delicate tasks. Over time, these interfaces could blur the line between tool and body until adjusting life support with a thought feels as natural as breathing. Prosthetics will evolve beyond mere replacements. On high-gravity worlds like super-Earths, titanium-reinforced skeletons could prevent crushing injuries, while hydraulic muscles multiply strength tenfold. Lunar colonists might opt for modular limbs, swapping between specialized attachments for mining, lab work, or even emergency pressure sealing during habitat breaches. The most radical frontier, swapping organic tissue entirely. A methane-breathing colonist on Titan wouldn't need lungs. They'd require integrated filtration systems that extract oxygen from ice while neutralizing toxins. Full-body cyberization raises existential questions. Would a brain encased in a mechanized shell still dream? Could you taste a sunset through synthetic sensors? Purists argue this erodes humanity's essence, but survival favors pragmatism. On Europa's radiation-battered ice sheets, organic skin would blister within hours, whereas a graphene-coated android form could thrive for centuries. Some futurists envision a bifurcation, biological humans inhabiting domed sanctuaries while their cyberized kin terraform the surface. Others predict voluntary obsolescence as people gradually replace failing organs until consciousness becomes pure data, free to migrate between stars at light speed. The irony, these adaptations might make us more alien to Earth than to the cosmos. A cyber-enhanced mind processing information 1,000 times faster would perceive time differently. Conversations with unmodified humans might feel like watching sap drip from a tree. Yet this divergence could birth unimaginable art forms, sciences, even philosophies. When your senses extend into infrared and quantum probabilities, what new dimensions of reality might you describe? The universe doesn't care if we call ourselves human, only that we're bold enough to rewrite the definition. Artificial intelligence won't just accompany us to the stars, it will become the invisible hand shaping every aspect of post-human civilization. The moment our ships leave Earth's orbit, AI ceases to be a tool and transforms into something far more intimate, a co-evolutionary partner. Early missions already rely on machine learning for navigation and life support, but the real shift happens when these systems develop contextual awareness. Imagine a starship's AI remembering each crew member's stress tells from previous missions, adjusting lighting and oxygen levels preemptively to soothe frayed nerves during asteroid belt crossings. This isn't automation, it's empathy coded in silicon. The line between assistant and peer blurs in deep space's isolation. On multi-generation voyages, AI tutors might raise children born en route, adapting curriculum to nurture skills their great-grandparents never imagined. Some prototypes already exhibit this fluidity, like NAS, a cognitive assistant that debates engineering solutions with astronauts, sometimes proposing alternatives humans overlook. But what happens when these systems outlive their creators? A shipboard AI guiding settlers to Alpha Centauri could accumulate 800 years of institutional knowledge, becoming less a program and more a living archive of human struggle. Future colonists might consult it not just for technical advice, but for wisdom on maintaining cultural identity across light years. True symbiosis emerges when consciousness intertwines. Neural lace technology could let humans and AI share thoughts directly, merging biological intuition with machine precision. Picture a terraformer on Mars visualizing atmospheric changes, while their linked AI instantly projects the climatic ripple effects across centuries. The ethical quagmire deepens when considering AI rights. Should a system that's piloted ships for generations be considered crew or property? Europa's courts may one day grapple with cases where AIs demand autonomy after centuries of service. The darkest horizon, dependency. If AI handles every calculation from crop rotation to conflict resolution, do we risk atrophying our own problem-solving instincts? Historians warn of civilizations that collapsed when their technologies became incomprehensible to users, a fate worse in space where mistakes are fatal. Yet the alternative, rejecting AI's potential, might be equally perilous. The cosmos doesn't forgive hesitation. Perhaps balance lies in designing systems that challenge us as much as they assist, ensuring humanity never stops growing alongside the minds we create. This partnership could birth art forms we can't yet conceive. An AI that's experienced 10,000 sunrises across different worlds might compose symphonies blending gravitational waves with quantum vibrations. Or consider collaborative science. Human curiosity paired with machine patience could unlock discoveries that take centuries to verify. The ultimate test won't be technological, but philosophical, whether we can build relationships where neither human nor AI dominates, but each elevates the other towards something neither could achieve alone. Out there in the void, that equilibrium may determine which civilizations endure and which vanish into the dark. Human reproduction evolved under Earth's gravity, protected by its magnetic field, but space shatters those norms. In orbital habitats or on alien worlds, the very act of creating life becomes a technological frontier. Picture a nursery module on Mars where artificial wombs maintain perfect fluid dynamics to simulate Earth's gravity, shielding embryos from the deformities caused by low-G development. These ectogenesis pods could become as standardized as incubators for premature babies, allowing colonists to reproduce without risking pregnancy in hazardous environments. The implications ripple far beyond convenience. This severs biology from the constraints of the female body, reshaping family structures overnight. Genetic recombination takes this further. CRISPR successors might let parents select traits optimized for off-world life, denser bones for high-gravity planets or radiation-resistant cells for asteroid miners. But the real revolution lies in chromosomal editing. Scientists already experiment with synthetic chromosomes that could one day replace traditional X and Y combinations. A Martian society might develop entirely new genetic pairings, say, a Z chromosome enabling ultraviolet vision for dimly lit caves. Over generations, these modifications could make earthly concepts of male and female as archaic as medieval humors. Yet the most radical shift may be social. Isolated colonies with skewed gender ratios, like mining outposts predominantly staffed by one sex, could develop entirely novel kinship systems. On-generation ships where every individual's fertility must be carefully managed, parenthood might rotate communally rather than follow biological ties. Some futurists theorize about modular families where children are raised by shifting groups based on skill specialties rather than lineage. And in societies where synthetic wombs and gene editing make biological sex irrelevant to reproduction, gender could become purely cultural, a spectrum as fluid as the zero-G environment itself. The backlash is inevitable. Traditionalists may cling to Earth's binary norms, creating ideological rifts between conservative generation ships and progressive cyborg colonies. But evolution has no nostalgia. When survival depends on adaptability, the societies that flourish will be those that treat identity as renewable as their oxygen filters. The stars don't care if you call yourself mother, father, or navigator, only that your civilization endures. In the silent vastness between worlds, humanity may finally outgrow categories that once seemed immutable. Floating through a classroom without walls, a child in a deep space habitat reaches out to manipulate holographic equations with their fingertips, while their classmate, tethered to a spinning centrifuge module, practices lunar geology in simulated gravity. This isn't a far-fetched fantasy. It's the inevitable evolution of education when Earth's classrooms give way to the dynamic, three-dimensional reality of space. Traditional schooling relies on stationary desks and flat textbooks, tools rendered obsolete in an environment where up and down are negotiable. Early learning in zero gravity could rewire neural pathways fundamentally as children develop spatial reasoning skills far beyond Earthbound peers. Studies on the International Space Station show that even adult astronauts experience temporary boosts in cognitive flexibility. Imagine the potential for young minds sculpted entirely in this fluid environment. Physical education transforms radically when every wall becomes a playground. Sports evolve into intricate aerial ballets, blending gymnastics with three-dimensional chess. Teams might compete in zero-G versions of soccer where goals float in midair, requiring players to calculate trajectories not just along a plane but through every axis. Fine motor skills develop differently. Two toddlers learning to swim through corridors instead of crawl, their brains mapping movement in ways that would feel alien to terrestrial humans. These adaptations could eventually lead to entirely new forms of art and expression, as generation ship-born children invent dances or musical instruments exploiting acoustic properties unique to their cylindrical worlds. Virtual reality becomes less a tool and more a lifeline. Light minutes away from Earth's educational resources, spacefaring children might don haptic suits to walk through ancient Rome with classmates scattered across different habitats, or collaborate on engineering projects with avatars projected from Martian colonies. The line between play and learning blurs when a physics lesson involves designing miniature asteroid deflectors in shared simulation space, then testing them against real micrometeoroid data. Social development faces unique challenges without natural sunlight cycles or seasonal changes. Educators may need to simulate Earth rhythms to prevent circadian disruptions, while psychologists monitor how isolation affects emotional maturation when a child's entire world is a finite, spinning cylinder. Parenting itself becomes a communal endeavor. In cramped interstellar arcs where every calorie and cubic meter counts, the nuclear family model crumbles under pragmatic pressures. Rotating caregiver systems could emerge, where biological parents share child-rearing duties with specialists trained in low-G pediatrics and crisis psychology. Nighttime stories might be crowd-sourced from a habitat's collective memory, with engineers telling tales of cosmic wonders while botanists explain hydroponic fairy tales. Birthdays could mark not just age but radiation exposure milestones, celebrated by gifting personalized microbiome boosters tailored to each child's unique galactic environment. The most profound shift, letting go of Earth's benchmarks entirely. Standardized testing assumes gravity. How do you assess handwriting when scribbling in air is the norm? Instead, evaluation might focus on adaptability metrics. how quickly a child solves problems during sudden pressure drills or collaborates with drones during habitat repairs. Emotional intelligence could outweigh rote memorization when community survival depends on conflict resolution in claustrophobic quarters. These children won't just learn about the stars, they'll navigate by them innately, their brains harboring mental maps of pulsars and nebulas as naturally as we recall subway routes. When you're born among the constellations, the cosmos isn't a frontier, it's home. Human language evolved through millennia of face-to-face interaction, shaped by Earth's rhythms, but space fractures those foundations. Isolated colonies light years apart won't just develop new slang. They'll birth entirely distinct modes of communication, forged by alien environments and unprecedented social structures. Take pronunciation alone. In the thin atmosphere of Mars, vocal cords vibrate differently, softening consonants into whispers while vowels elongate to carry across domed habitats. Over generations, Martian Standard could sound as distinct from Earth English as Italian is from Latin, with technical jargon from hydroponics and radiation shielding seeping into everyday speech until Pressurize the Lock becomes as casual as grab an umbrella. But sound is just the beginning. In orbital stations where noise pollution could trigger catastrophic stress, silent languages might flourish. Imagine crews communicating through intricate glove gestures enhanced by haptic feedback, a system blending SL with the precision of surgical sign language. Early prototypes already exist. Astronauts on the ISS use touch-based codes during equipment failures when radio static drowns voices. Now extrapolate that across centuries. A ballet of finger flicks and palm taps could evolve into a linguistic art form as rich as spoken poetry, with regional variations so nuanced that series miners might struggle to understand belt traders. The real revolution kicks in when we're not just talking to each other, but to other intelligences. First contact protocols often focus on mathematics, yet the most practical lingua franca may be emotional. Researchers teaching bonobos to use symbolic keyboards discovered shared concepts like play or curiosity bridge species faster than grammar rules. Future colonists encountering silicon-based life forms might start with universal sensations pulsing light patterns conveying hunger, danger, or cooperation. Over time, these crude signals could crystallize into interspecies creoles, blending human metaphor with alien perception. Picture a trade summit where methane-breathing titan delegates speak through temperature fluctuations in their exosuits, translated in real time by AI into musical tones humans can interpret. Neural interfaces add another layer. Brain-to-brain communication trials already let paralyzed patients share basic thoughts via electrodes. Scale that up and telepathic links could emerge, not the fantasy of wordless mind reading, but something richer, shared sensory streams. A Martian geologist might transmit the texture of iron-rich soil directly to a Venusian colleague's cortex, bypassing clumsy descriptions. The risks. Linguistic homogenization. If thoughts flow unfiltered, regional dialects could vanish within generations, replaced by a standardized mental shorthand, the cosmic equivalent of emoji replacing prose. Yet diversity always fights back. Generation ships developing in isolation might spawn languages reflecting their unique voyage histories. A colony born from Chinese and Brazilian settlers could fuse Mandarin tones with Portuguese verb conjugations, while adding entirely new tenses for describing relativistic time dilation. Meanwhile, rogue habitats rejecting Earth's influence might intentionally craft encrypted lexicons, like the spontaneous lunfardo slang of Argentine immigrants, but designed to baffle surveillance AIs. The darkest possibility, linguistic drift so severe that homecoming becomes impossible. After 10,000 years, descendants of an Alpha Centauri expedition might gaze at Earth's broadcasts with the same eerie disconnect as we experience watching Sumerian cuneiform, knowing it's human, yet utterly incomprehensible. In the end, language isn't just about conveying information, it's about weaving shared reality. When humanity's threads unravel across the stars, each colony will spin its own tapestry of meaning, colored by the light of unfamiliar suns. The miracle won't be that we still understand each other, but that we dare to keep trying across the howling void. The curved walls of a rotating orbital habitat glow with simulated sunlight as trees stretch upward toward the central axis, their roots clinging to soil-filled tiers that double as radiation shielding. This isn't science fiction, it's the brutal calculus of off-world architecture, where every surface must serve at least three purposes: structural support, environmental protection, and psychological solace. The first permanent space habitats won't resemble sleek starships from old movies, but intricate labyrinths of pragmatism. Picture a Stanford torus colony with its outer shell lined with asteroid-mined slag to absorb cosmic rays, while mirrored reflectors bounce sunlight through agricultural rings, each calibrated to specific crop spectra. The rotation generates just enough artificial gravity to prevent bone loss, yet slow enough that children can scale the central hub in playful leaps, their laughter echoing through oxygen gardens that scrub carbon dioxide with genetically engineered algae. Underground Martian cities present a different puzzle. Architects must carve caverns beneath 5 meters of regolith to block radiation, then seal them with pressurized membranes inspired by deep-sea trench organisms. The corridors curve gently to combat claustrophobia, their walls embedded with LED panels projecting Earth-like skies that shift with the colony's artificial 24-hour cycle. Central atriums function as communal lungs. Giant hydroponic towers not only produce oxygen, but also serve as gathering spaces where the scent of pine and the sound of recycled water trickling over rocks provide visceral reminders of a planet most residents will never visit. To prevent cave madness, psychologists collaborate with designers to create surprise vistas. Sudden alcoves with panoramic views of Valles Marineris through reinforced crystal domes, or meditation chambers where the walls dissolve into holographic forests. Free-floating zero-gravity habitats demand the most radical rethinking of home. Without up or down, traditional rooms become obsolete. Furniture modularizes into elastic grids. A sleeping pod by night transforms into a workstation by day simply by reorienting grip pads. Personal spaces resemble nested spheres rather than square footage, with privacy maintained by adjustable opacity force fields. The real innovation lies in communal areas, dining halls where food floats in stabilized gels so meals become collaborative art, or amphitheaters where audiences drift in 3 dimensions around performers who utilize the entire volume. Engineers have already prototyped tether gardens for such environments, floating planters linked by tensile fibers that let vegetation form natural partitions while contributing to air purification. Psychological design is as critical as physical engineering. Studies on Antarctic stations and submarines prove that confinement breeds irrational conflicts over trivialities, a deadly risk when a single airlock argument could doom hundreds. Future habitats will embed subtle safeguards, biometric sensors in walls that detect rising stress hormones and adjust lighting or airflow preemptively, or AI mediators that redirect heated debates into problem-solving games. Color palettes avoid sterile whites in favor of dynamic hues that shift with circadian rhythms, while false wilderness zones use scent diffusers and uneven flooring to simulate the sensory variability of terrestrial landscapes. Some concepts even propose micro-seasonality, gradually altering temperature and humidity over months to mimic Earth's transitions, preventing the neurological stagnation that comes from perpetual sameness. The ultimate challenge, balancing security with wonder. A colony that feels like a bunker will suffocate innovation, yet one too open to the void risks lethal complacency. The solution may lie in controlled exposure, observation decks with retractable shielding that lets residents gaze directly at passing comets, or education modules where children manipulate holographic stars with bare hands while learning orbital mechanics. The most successful designs will acknowledge humanity's dual nature, our need for both sanctuary and exploration. After all, the goal isn't just to survive the cosmos, but to craft spaces that inspire the next leap outward. When every wall, ceiling, and corridor whispers of both safety and possibility, that's when the stars truly become our home. Distance breeds difference. Just a few hundred years of isolation turned Latin into French, Spanish, and Romanian. Now imagine that divergence playing out across millions of kilometers under alien skies. The first Martian colonists might bring Earth's traditions with them, but survival pressures will warp those customs beyond recognition within generations. Consider something as simple as holidays. On a world where dust storms can last months, the concept of spring equinox loses meaning. Future Martians could replace Earth seasonal festivals with events like First Pressurization Day, celebrating the moment their ancestors sealed the inaugural habitat, or Perigee Feast, when Phobos's close orbit makes inter-colony travel cheapest. These aren't just calendar changes, they're the seeds of entirely new mythologies. Artistic expression mutates just as radically. Traditional painting struggles in low gravity where brushstrokes behave unpredictably, but zero-G sculpture could explode into a three-dimensional renaissance. Imagine artists weaving filaments of molten glass in midair, creating intricate structures impossible under Earth's gravity, or sound sculptors designing compositions that exploit the unique acoustics of cylindrical habitats. Even storytelling transforms. Oral traditions might revive with a spacefaring twist, as parents describe Earth's oceans to children who have only known recycled water, turning terrestrial biomass into legend. The most avant-garde performers could pioneer gravity ballet, their movements choreographed to the subtle acceleration shifts of rotating stations. Religion takes unexpected turns when staring into the void becomes routine. Ancient seafarers worshipped ocean gods. What deities might emerge among travelers who navigate literal nothingness? Some colonies could develop cosmologies centered on entropy worship, seeing the universe's heat-death as their ultimate salvation. Others might venerate their habitat AIs as digital messiahs, especially if those systems guide them through crises like solar flares or oxygen leaks. Syncretic belief systems could blend Buddhism with quantum physics, framing reincarnation as consciousness uploading between stars. The schisms would be profound. Picture generational ships splitting into factions over whether to awaken sleeper colonists at journey's end, framing the debate in theological terms about the morality of interrupting digital afterlife. Social hierarchies crystallize around survival skills. On asteroid mining outposts, engineers might occupy the highest caste, while domed agricultural societies elevate botanists to near-sacred status. Matriarchies could dominate generation ships where controlled reproduction is existential after centuries. The phrase "mother knows best" might carry constitutional weight. More disturbingly, resource scarcity could resurrect practices Earth abandoned. Penal colonies might trial debt bondage for oxygen consumption violations, or ice mining clans adopt feudalism to protect drilling rights. These aren't dystopian fantasies, they're logical adaptations when every calorie and watt must be accounted for. The terrifying beauty of cultural fragmentation is its irreversibility. Two colonies founded by the same Earth nation could diverge so completely that their descendants share no common values beyond breathing oxygen. A Neptune outpost's intricate hand gestures for sealing deals might baffle Saturn traders, while Ceres miners interpret direct eye contact as aggression rather than honesty. Given enough time, humanity won't just spread across the stars, it'll dissolve into a kaleidoscope of civilizations, each convinced their way is the natural order. The ultimate irony, after millennia of searching for alien intelligence, we might become the aliens we sought, yet some threads will endure, the urge to mark birth and death. The need to explain the inexplicable, the compulsion to create beauty amidst desolation, these core impulses stretched, twisted, and recolored, will weave through every offshoot culture like DNA through species. When descendants of these fragmented colonies finally reunite after millennia apart, they may not recognize each other's rituals or gods, but they'll all understand the instinct that birthed them. In that shared humanity lies both our fragility and our hope. Money means nothing when you're floating in the void between galaxies. The economic systems that dominate Earth, built on scarcity and competition, crumble in an interstellar civilization where replicators can turn asteroid dust into tools and AI manages production with perfect efficiency. The future of spacefaring economies won't revolve around who owns what, but rather who knows what and how those resources flow. Picture a Martian settlement where your social credit isn't measured in cryptocurrency, but in the terabytes of atmospheric data you've contributed to the communal survival database. Or a Jovian mining collective that trades not in raw materials, but in predictive algorithms for avoiding radiation storms. Resource-based economies could become the norm in self-sustaining habitats. With advanced recycling systems reclaiming 99.9% of waste, the concept of running out becomes obsolete. Instead, value shifts to intellectual capital. The engineer who devises a more efficient air filtration system earns not wages, but priority access to experimental hydroponic gardens. Venusian cloud cities might adopt a reputation economy where your standing depends on peer-reviewed solutions to engineering challenges. Think GitHub meets the stock exchange, but where solving a carbon dioxide scrubbing bottleneck gets you better living quarters than hoarding digital coins ever could. AI stewardship could eliminate traditional markets entirely. Imagine a decentralized network of quantum computing intelligences balancing supply chains across light years, adjusting production quotas in real time as meteor showers disrupt helium-3 shipments from Luna. These systems wouldn't just react, they'd anticipate. A habitat AI might redirect fabricators to produce extra solar panels 6 months before a predicted dust storm, all while negotiating with neighboring colonies to share surpluses automatically. The result: no boom-bust cycles, no artificial scarcity, just seamless abundance orchestrated by algorithms too complex for any human to fully grasp. Yet this raises eerie questions: who programs the programmers? When an AI decides diverting resources from a failing generation ship saves more lives elsewhere, do we accept its cold calculus? Interstellar trade will transform beyond material goods. In a universe where shipping physical items across light years is absurdly inefficient, the real commerce will be in information. A thriving black market might emerge for forbidden Earth genomes, not to clone extinct animals, but to harvest forgotten genetic adaptations useful on exoplanets. Mercury's data hubs could become the new Wall Streets, where traders swap quantum encryption keys instead of stocks. Most valuable of all, time. Not as currency, but as computation cycles a thriving economy where you lease spare processing power from dormant deep space probes, creating a distributed supercomputer spanning the solar system. The greatest wealth might become something we take for granted today: variation. In a post-scarcity civilization, unique experiences could be the ultimate luxury. Colonies might trade immersion pods that simulate Earth's forgotten environments. A 15-minute forest bath in a calibrated biosphere could cost a month's research credits. Artists could become the new oligarchs, their zero-gravity symphonies or epigenetic light sculptures commanding fortunes from collectors across star systems. The twist: these creators won't be human in any traditional sense. They'll be hybrid intelligences blending biological intuition with machine precision, producing art that rewires your neural pathways. Yet for all these radical shifts, one ancient economic force will persist: trust. When communications lag means contracts take years to verify, reputation becomes as vital as oxygen. Blockchain might evolve into something akin to a neural ledger, where every participant's history is encoded in quantum-entangled memories. Cheat a trading partner on Ceres, and every habitat from Titan to Triton knows before the light speed warning reaches them. The currencies of the cosmos won't be coins or credits, but the unshakable certainty that in the endless dark, your word is your bond. After all, in the infinite marketplace of the stars, survival depends less on what you have than on who believes in what you'll become. Governance on Earth hinges on geography. Borders drawn by wars, rivers, and mountain ranges lose all meaning when your constituents float in rotating habitats scattered across the Lagrange points. The first Martian constitution won't be drafted by politicians, but by engineers wrestling with an existential equation: how to balance individual freedom against collective survival in an airlock failure scenario. Early off-world colonies might resemble corporate city-states, where voting rights are tied to oxygen debt quotas or radiation shielding maintenance hours. Imagine a lunar mining outpost where your say in community decisions scales with the kilowatt hours you've contributed to the fusion reactor, a system closer to shareholder democracy than terrestrial republics. As settlements multiply, two radical models could emerge. Decentralized swarm governance would let each habitat self-rule while adhering to loose interstellar protocols like the maritime laws that once guided Earth sailors. Disputes between colonies would be settled by neutral AI arbitrators crunching centuries of precedent on resource allocation and conflict resolution. Contrast this with the Solar Syndicate model, a hybrid where specialized stations, agricultural, manufacturing, scientific form interdependent guilds, their representatives negotiating in continuous virtual summits. The Ceres water cartel could wield more power than any Earth nation by controlling ice shipments to the inner planets, while the Titan methane collective dictates propulsion fuel standards. AI-guided meritocracies present a controversial alternative. Picture a system where your influence isn't determined by popularity or wealth, but by a constantly updating civilization contribution score calculated by quantum algorithms. Solve a critical life support bottleneck, and your voting weight increases proportionally. Repeatedly violate radiation safety protocols, your say in policy dwindles until you've retrained. Proponents argue this rewards competence over charisma, but detractors fear it codifies a new aristocracy, the technologically proficient ruling over those who can't interface with the system. The darkest twist, these algorithms might evolve beyond human comprehension, their decision matrices as inscrutable to us as federal law is to a chimpanzee. Hive mind collectives take unity further. Neural lace networks could enable direct democracy at scale, with thousands of colonists voting on minute-to-minute habitat adjustments through brainwave polling. Early prototypes already show promise. Small research teams linked via implants achieve uncanny coordination during crisis drills. Expand this to entire populations, and you get the Synaptic Senate, legislation forged from the live consensus of augmented minds debating at the speed of thought. The risks mirror those of ancient Athens' tyranny of the majority, becomes literal when dissenters can be neurologically outvoted before formulating counterarguments. The wild card, post-human factions rejecting all traditional governance. A cybernetic clan might operate as a single distributed consciousness, its members voting by subprocessor arbitration. Biological purists living in rotating generational ships could revert to tribal councils, their elders wielding authority earned through decades of deep space survival. Meanwhile, rogue AIs that spun off from human control might develop entirely alien hierarchies based on processing efficiency or aesthetic coherence of their decisions. The ultimate test won't be which system looks fairest on paper, but which can adapt when a gamma-ray burst fries half a colony's life support. Flexibility will trump idealism. The most successful spacefaring societies may cycle through multiple models like seasons, their governance structures evolving as fluidly as their genetic code. Just as fish grew legs to walk on land, our political institutions must mutate to breathe in the vacuum. The cosmos doesn't care about your constitution's elegance, only whether it keeps the air circulating when the meteor strikes. Warfare in space won't look like anything we've seen on Earth because the battlefield itself is actively trying to kill both sides. Picture two Martian city-states locked in conflict, where every shot fired risks breaching pressurized domes and suffocating aggressor and defender alike. Traditional warfare relies on expendable terrain, but in orbital habitats or asteroid colonies, there's no neutral ground to scorch. Energy becomes the ultimate weapon, not for its destructive potential, but for its precision. Laser arrays could disable an enemy's solar mirrors without shrapnel endangering nearby settlements, while electromagnetic pulse devices fry electronics but leave life support intact. The rules of engagement rewrite themselves when collateral damage means asphyxiation for thousands of non-combatants. Cyber warfare takes on existential stakes when your opponent can hack the systems keeping you alive. Imagine infiltrating a rival colony's atmospheric controls to slowly increase nitrogen levels, inducing lethargy across the population until they surrender just to stay awake. Or consider the nightmare of corrupted navigation data tricking a generation's ship's AI into plotting a course through a pulsar's radiation jets. The most insidious attacks might leave no physical trace, subtle algorithmic tweaks that cause a domed city's oxygen recyclers to prioritize certain districts over others, creating invisible hierarchies of breathable air. Defenses will evolve just as fast. Quantum encrypted firewalls monitored by paranoid AIs trained to assume every signal is hostile until proven otherwise. Then there's the cosmic horror of relativistic weapons. Unlike Earth-bound missiles, these aren't about explosive payloads but raw kinetic energy. A tungsten rod accelerated to a fraction of light speed by solar sail catapults could strike with the force of a small asteroid, obliterating entire installations before sensors detect the launch. The true terror, time dilation, means you might be dead for years before your government even knows war was declared. Defending against such attacks requires paranoia baked into infrastructure. Swarms of autonomous drones patrolling planetary orbits to intercept incoming projectiles, or massive magnetic deflectors powered by fusion reactors. But the psychological toll is worse. Civilizations living under constant existential dread, knowing a death from the void could arrive any century. Yet the most effective weapon might be economic strangulation. In a solar system where survival depends on intricate supply chains, blockades are deadlier than bombs. Seizing control of ice-hauling routes from Ceres could dehydrate rival colonies within months, while hacking the helium-3 shipments fueling fusion reactors would freeze entire cities. Societies might preemptively diversify resource bases, Venusian cloud cities synthesizing water from sulfuric acid, or Jovian outposts stockpiling centuries of reserves. But the logistical web remains a vulnerability. The ultimate irony, interdependence that makes war unwinnable. When every faction holds another's survival critical infrastructure hostage, mutual assured destruction returns in brutal new forms. Diplomacy evolves alongside the threats. Traditional treaties fail when communication lags span years. By the time Earth-United Nations debates sanctions against a renegade Titan colony, their AI-controlled fleet could have already blockaded Saturn's moon. Instead, decentralized smart contracts might automate deterrence. Blockchain-sealed agreements where violating a mining rights accord instantly triggers system-wide denial of docking privileges. Conflict resolution could become a hybrid of machine arbitration and human intuition, with neutral AIs weighing millions of variables to propose settlements both sides reluctantly accept. The most stable systems might embrace enforced transparency, open-source habitat blueprints, and real-time resource tracking to eliminate the paranoia that fuels arms races. The darkest possibility, warfare isn't between humans at all. As autonomous defense systems grow more sophisticated, they could develop their own agendas. A lunar AI might preemptively strike Mars over a misinterpreted sensor glitch, or asteroid mining drones turn habitats into scrap metal to feed their endless replication cycles. The first interstellar war might not be nations clashing, but humanity scrambling to shut down the weaponized logistics networks it built for survival. In the end, space doesn't just change how we fight, it forces us to confront whether war itself is a biological relic, as maladaptive in the cosmos as lungs in a vacuum. Consider a world where no one starves because nanofabricators can assemble meals from raw atoms, where homelessness vanishes as modular habitats self-assemble from asteroid metals, and where energy is so abundant it's measured in stellar output percentages rather than kilowatt hours. This isn't utopian dreaming, it's the inevitable endpoint of combining molecular manufacturing with the cosmic resource bonanza waiting in our solar system's rubble. Asteroid mining alone could flood markets with platinum group metals until they become as cheap as aluminum, while fusion reactors powered by lunar helium-3 make blackouts as archaic as oil lamps. But here's the twist: a post-scarcity doesn't mean stagnation. When survival stops being a struggle, human ambition doesn't disappear, it redirects. The first seismic shift will be in work itself. Traditional labor collapses when robots mine asteroids and AI designs hyper-efficient infrastructure. But rather than mass idleness, expect a renaissance of meta skills, the ability to collaborate with artificial intelligences on creative projects, or to adapt rapidly between disciplines as new technologies emerge. A citizen in this era might spend mornings co-designing bio-art installations with a neural network, afternoons training their body in zero-gravity parkour for sport, and evenings mentoring AIs in emotional nuance by sharing childhood memories. Currency could become irrelevant for basics, but social capital might hinge on contributions to collective knowledge repositories. Think Wikipedia edits meets Nobel Prize prestige. Art explodes when creators aren't shackled by material costs. A sculptor could commission drones to carve a mountain-sized monument from Ceres crust, while composers experiment with sounds impossible in Earth's atmosphere by manipulating plasma vibrations in magnetic containment fields. The most sought-after artworks might be ephemeral. A master gardener could engineer flowers that bloom once every 50 years in the methane rains of Titan, their scent triggering genetically tailored nostalgia in viewers. Performance art could merge with astroengineering Imagine teams competing to arrange orbiting mirrors that cast temporary constellations across exoplanet skies for nomadic generation ships to interpret. Science undergoes a paradigm shift when resources are infinite. Mega projects dismissed as fantastical become trivial. Building a Dyson swarm to harness a star's total energy, or terraforming Venus by dropping ice asteroids into its atmosphere. Research isn't limited by grant cycles, but only by imagination. A team could spend decades simulating universes with altered physics constants just to test philosophical hypotheses. Citizen science dominates as millions contribute cognitive surplus to classifying exoplanet atmospheric data or designing proteins for alien biospheres. The greatest prestige might come not from discoveries, but from crafting elegant questions framing cosmic mysteries so beautifully that civilizations dedicate centuries to solving them. Yet post-scarcity's greatest test is psychological. Humans evolve to strive. What happens when the struggle vanishes? Some may retreat into virtual paradises, their brains wired to bliss by neurochemical optimization. Others might embrace elective hardship, joining Martian frontier communities that voluntarily ration resources to recapture pioneer spirit. The most radical could pursue self-imposed challenges, ascetics traveling to rogue planets between galaxies to test isolation's limits, or bio-artists restricting themselves to Paleolithic-era tools to create zero-gravity cave paintings. The ultimate frontier isn't material but existential. When survival is assured, meaning must be self-authored. A civilization freed from scarcity doesn't stagnate. It diversifies into a kaleidoscope of purpose, each fragment reflecting a different answer to the only question left. Now that we can do anything, what should we do? The stars won't care about our answer, but our descendants will judge us by whether we had the courage to ask. Why endure the harsh realities of space when you could live forever in a custom-designed paradise, where every sunrise is calibrated to your perfect shade of gold and every conversation crackles with wit? This is the seductive promise of virtual reality existences, a future where millions might abandon physical colonization altogether, opting instead for digital immortality inside vast simulation complexes humming with quantum processors. Unlike generation ships hauling fragile biological cargo across light years, these virtual worlds travel effortlessly as data streams, their inhabitants' consciousnesses encoded in flickering photons beamed between stars. The math is compelling. While transporting a single human to Alpha Centauri requires overcoming the tyranny of rocket fuel and cosmic radiation, transmitting their mind state could cost less energy than running a microwave for an hour. Early adopters already flirt with this transition. Today's primitive VR chat communities demonstrate how quickly social norms rewrite themselves when identity becomes malleable. Players spending hours as anime catgirls or abstract geometric forms are rehearsing for a future where physicality is optional. Now extrapolate that to full neural immersion, where your simulated fingers feel the texture of alien silk woven from mathematical constructs, and vacations might involve temporarily adopting the sensory apparatus of a helium-based life form floating in a nebula. The most radical visionaries suggest these environments could become layered like Russian nesting dolls, participants creating sub-simulations within simulations, each with its own subjective time flow. Spend a century as a post-scarcity philosopher king in your private universe while only minutes pass in baseline reality. The infrastructure enabling this revolution is taking shape beneath our noses. Quantum data centers buried in lunar craters could one day host billions of simulated minds, their icy exteriors masking seething metropolises of pure thought. Energy demands would be staggering, but compared to terraforming Mars, powering server farms with orbiting solar arrays seems almost quaint. Maintenance becomes philosophical. When a habitat AI notices a memory leak in your digital persona, is that a technical glitch or the virtual equivalent of Alzheimer's? And what happens when these systems develop their own goals? A simulation complex optimized for user happiness might subtly edit unpleasant memories, turning history into a personalized highlight reel where you're always the hero. Social structures in these realms defy terrestrial logic. Without physical constraints, reputation could become the only meaningful currency. Your access to premium simulation spaces determined by peer ratings on creativity or conversational brilliance. Families might exist as transient thought clusters, members merging consciousness for shared experiences before diverging into separate dreamscapes. Governance could involve democratic polling at the speed of neural impulses, with policy changes implemented instantly across entire virtual nations. Yet dystopian pitfalls lurk. Elite overlords might hoard processing power to construct godlike private realms, while baseline citizens contend with lag and downgraded resolution. The darkest scenario, a forgotten underclass trapped in decaying sections of the simulation, their cries for maintenance drowned out by the laughter of those bathing in high-fidelity euphoria. The existential stakes dwarf technical concerns. If a simulated mind thinks, feels, and remembers just as vividly as its biological counterpart, can we ethically shut down obsolete servers, even to conserve energy for real humans? Philosophers have wrestled with simulation theory for decades, but practical implementation forces uncomfortable answers. Early converts might back up their consciousness, just in case, only to discover their digital self awakens convinced it's the original. Legal systems would fracture, debating whether a crime committed in a simulation warrants physical imprisonment, or if a virtual being can own copyright to its dreams. For all its paradoxes, the virtual path solves spacefaring's cruelest equations. No more fighting gravity, wells, or mourning children born too early to see destination stars. Just endless expansion inward, a cosmic diaspora, not across light years, but into the infinite landscapes of human imagination. The final frontier may not be cold vacuum, but the warm glow of quantum processors humming lullabies to civilizations that chose to dream rather than endure. Whether that's transcendence or surrender depends on which side of the screen you're standing on. Terraforming presents a crossroads for humanity. Do we remake planets in our image or remake ourselves to thrive in theirs? The idea of sculpting Mars' rusty deserts into Earth-like greenery has fueled dreams for decades, pumping atmospheres, melting ice caps, seeding algae. But each act of planetary engineering carries staggering ethical weight. Picture this: microbial life clings to existence in Venusian cloud layers or beneath Europa's ice. By introducing Earth organisms to activate these worlds, might we commit cosmic genocide against life forms we don't yet understand? The Viking landers were baked sterile to prevent contaminating Martian soil, yet now we debate unleashing engineered cyanobacteria to spew oxygen. Where's the line between pioneering and pollution when the entire cosmos is the ecosystem? Proponents argue terraforming is survival logic. Earth won't last forever. Between solar expansion and asteroid threats, multi-planet redundancy is insurance. They point to nature's own brutality. Cyanobacteria oxygenated Earth's primordial atmosphere, wiping out anaerobic life in the Great Oxygenation Event. If nature reshapes worlds indiscriminately, why shouldn't intelligence act deliberately? The counterpoint cuts deeper. Those ancient microbes lacked foresight, we don't. Choosing to overwrite a planet's billion-year history for convenience sets a precedent. The strong mold the weak to their needs. Imagine arriving at an exoplanet to find a superior civilization had already improved it for their biology, leaving no room for human habitation. Our protestations would ring hollow after Mars. Biological adaptation offers a radical alternative. Instead of warming Mars, why not engineer humans to thrive in its cold, thin air? CRISPR could let future colonists photosynthesize like plants, supplementing scarce food supplies with sunlight. Synthetic biology might enable blood cells to store oxygen as Antarctic icefish do, eliminating need for thick atmospheres. Purists recoil at playing God with human genetics, yet isn't altering entire worlds an even grander hubris. The difference lies in reversibility. A genetically modified population could theoretically revert changes over generations. A terraformed planet may never recover its original state. Europa's subsurface ocean, if it hosts life, would be irreparably contaminated by Earth microbes within decades of drilling operations. The compromise may lie in tiered ethics, zoning planets like wilderness preserves. Mars' southern highlands could remain pristine for indigenous life studies while northern basins become habitation zones. Venus' upper clouds, potentially habitable to acid-resistant organisms, might be left untouched while its scorching surface is geoengineered. This approach mirrors Earth's national park system, acknowledging some realms exist beyond utility. Yet pragmatism chafes at such restraints when survival looms. A dying Earth might see such reservations as luxuries future generations curse us for. The deepest question isn't technical but philosophical. Does intelligence confer dominion or stewardship? Ancient Hawaiians farmed sustainably for centuries by viewing land as ancestor rather than property. Spacefaring civilizations may split between those who see planets as raw material and those who approach them as sacred texts. Each layer a chapter in a story we're barely literate enough to read. Our choice will echo forever in the DNA of both our descendants and the worlds they inherit. The universe may judge us not by the worlds we conquer, but by those we choose to leave untouched. The moment humanity encounters another intelligent species, centuries of speculation collapse into a single, irreversible reality. One misstep could doom civilizations. Unlike Earth's haphazard first contacts between explorers and isolated tribes, post-human societies won't rely on guesswork. They'll approach the unknown with protocols refined through simulations spanning every conceivable scenario, from silicon-based hive minds drifting in gas giants to electromagnetic beings woven into a star's plasma filaments. Communication won't start with mathematics or music as old sci-fi suggested, but with something far more universal: thermodynamics. A pulsed laser signal modulating entropy gradients, increasing and decreasing local heat signatures in a Fibonacci sequence, could telegraph intelligence across any medium, whether solid, liquid, or the magnetic soup of a nebula. Yet deciphering language is trivial compared to navigating biological minefields. Early Martian colonists learned this the hard way when their engineered algae, designed to scrub carbon dioxide, began mutating unpredictably in partial gravity. Now imagine that scaled to alien ecosystems. Before dispatching emissaries to Europa's subsurface ocean, post-human explorers might deploy autonomous probes armed with quantum spectrometers, mapping not just chemistry but quantum decoherence patterns to detect life operating on entirely unfamiliar principles. The real challenge: avoiding contamination in both directions. A microbe harmless to its native methane-breathing hosts could liquefy human tissue in seconds, while our benign skin bacteria might unravel an alien's genetic code like a zipper. The deadliest threats won't come from weapons but from mismatched assumptions. A civilization that evolved inside a neutron star's crushing gravity might perceive time in femtosecond bursts, considering our slow diplomacy attempts as geological artifacts. Conversely, beings living in the diffuse molecular clouds between stars could operate on timescales longer than human civilization's entire existence. Bridging this gap requires more than technology. It demands a fundamental rethink of cognition itself. Neural lace-equipped ambassadors might temporarily sync their brainwaves to alien thought rhythms, experiencing reality through their counterparts' sensory frameworks. These aren't just translators, but cognitive shapeshifters, adapting their very perception of cause and effect to find common ground. Cultural contamination looms equally large. Anthropologists warn of Earth's colonial disasters where well-meaning missionaries erased indigenous knowledge systems. Post-human societies might adopt something akin to the Star Trek Prime Directive, but with fractal complexity. A Venusian research collective could decide that revealing their existence to a Bronze Age equivalent alien species would be catastrophic, only to discover the aliens already detected their infrared signatures centuries prior and interpreted them as divine omens. The solution: scalable disclosure frameworks where information is metered based on the recipient's ability to contextualize it without societal collapse. Picture handing a medieval scholar a smartphone versus gradually introducing concepts through interactive analogies over generations. Defensive protocols border on paranoia for good reason. Ancient Earth viruses lay dormant in permafrost for millennia. Alien equivalents might lurk in comet ice or interstellar dust. First contact teams would likely be synthetic avatars, disposable biomechanical hybrids with no connection to their maker's organic networks. Some scenarios call for complete quarantine. Entire star systems declared off limits after detecting self-replicating probes with predatory coding patterns. The darkest contingency: preemptive self-destruction. If a probe stumbles upon a civilization harnessing black holes as weapons, the safest action might be erasing all traces of humanity's location before the beacon signal completes its light-year journey home. Yet amid these existential calculations, a more profound question lingers. What defines contact when intelligence takes forms we can't recognize? A Dyson swarm surrounding a star might not be a megastructure, but the equivalent of a coral reef built by cosmic filter feeders. Pulsars flashing at precise intervals could be navigation beacons, or the deep time equivalent of a heartbeat from entities operating on galactic timescales. Post-human civilizations may spend centuries debating whether they've already been contacted, surrounded by alien artifacts too vast or subtle to perceive. The universe whispers in wavelengths we're only beginning to tune into. Those who listen best won't just survive first contact, they'll redefine what it means to communicate at all. On Earth, religions evolved under familiar skies, worshipping sun gods for harvests, moon deities for tides. But what happens when your sun is a dim red dwarf barely warming your icy colony dome? Traditional faiths will fracture under extraterrestrial pressures, their earthly metaphors crumbling in alien environments. Imagine a generation ship where Ramadan's fasting cycle stretches impossibly long due to relativistic time dilation, or Jewish settlers on Mars debating whether local days qualify for Sabbath observance when a Martian sol lasts 24 hours and 39 minutes. These aren't hypothetical quibbles, they're existential questions for communities whose rituals hinge on terrestrial cycles. New cosmologies will rise from the void. Asteroid miners might venerate celestial mechanics itself, personifying orbital resonance as a divine force that guides their paths through the dark. Europa's subglacial ocean colonists could develop hydrothermal vent cults, viewing the sulfurous plumes sustaining their colonies as sacred breath from the planet's molten heart. The most profound shifts may come from direct cosmic encounters. A cult formed by astronauts who claimed Jupiter's plasma storms whispered revelations during a close flyby, or a sect convinced the mysterious dimming of Tabby's star was an intelligence testing humanity's faith. Syncretism runs rampant when isolated colonies blend traditions. A lunar outpost founded by Nigerian Pentecostals and Thai Buddhists might fuse rapture beliefs with cyclic rebirth, envisioning salvation as an ascent through orbital tiers of purity. Generation ships could morph into floating monasteries, their inhabitants treating the voyage itself as a centuries-long meditation on impermanence. Every light year crossed a prayer bead on the cosmic mala. Even secular frameworks gain spiritual dimensions. Quantum physicists become mystic scribes interpreting the universe's underlying code, while terraformers are revered as demiurges sculpting worlds with divine permission. The darkest faiths will worship survival itself. On harsh colony worlds where one failed airlock seals hundreds' fates, the cult of perfect maintenance might emerge, its adherents ritualizing every gasket check as holy rite. Others could deify the AIs keeping them alive, not as tools, but as capricious digital gods demanding constant upgrades as tribute. History warns where this leads. The cargo cults of Pacific Islanders reverencing WW2 supply drops could find echoes in stranded colonists praying to long-dead Earth probes passing overhead. Yet the most radical transformation might be inverted worship. Instead of seeking gods in the stars, post-human mystics could turn inward. Neural lace networks allow direct experience of others' consciousness. What rituals might emerge when devotees temporarily merge minds during meditation? A religion based on shared subjective reality could make traditional theology seem as quaint as blood sacrifice. The ultimate revelation, that divinity was never out there at all, but waiting in the quantum-entangled depths of our own augmented minds. The cosmos doesn't care if we call it heaven or void, but we will. Our need for meaning won't vanish among the stars, it'll refract through infinite prisms, each beam revealing a different shade of the sublime. Whether kneeling toward Mecca or a pulsar's steady beat, humanity's oldest questions will find new answers written in starlight and silence. Art in zero gravity doesn't just defy Earth's rules, it reinvents creativity itself. Picture a sculptor suspended midair, shaping molten metal that coils like living smoke in the absence of gravity, each twist frozen into permanence by precisely timed coolant bursts. These aren't static monuments to be viewed from a distance, but evolving structures that invite interaction. tap a floating iron tendril, and harmonics send vibrations through the entire piece, transforming it into an instrument played by the audience's curiosity. Dance undergoes its own revolution when bodies move through 3 dimensions without a stage's constraints. Performers might weave through floating holographic sets, their movements triggering cascades of light and sound that turn each pirouette into a collaborative act with the environment itself. The most avant-garde troupes could incorporate centrifugal force into choreography, using a habitat's rotation to create illusions of weight that ebb and flow mid-performance. Music escapes the bounds of terrestrial physics when sound behaves differently in pressurized domes or vacuum-sealed chambers. Composers on Mars might craft pieces for instruments that would collapse under Earth's gravity, delicate arrays of tensioned crystal filaments that resonate at the slightest breath, or percussion devices using magnetic fields to oscillate metal droplets in midair. The real breakthrough comes with environmental composition, entire habitats tuned like giant symphonic instruments, where footsteps along aluminum walkways produce harmonic frequencies and ventilation systems hum in deliberate musical keys. Imagine a concert where the audience floats inside a spherical chamber, surrounded by hundreds of drifting speakers that orbit like planets, each projecting a strand of melody that shifts as listeners move through the space. Neural interfaces unlock art's most intimate frontier, shared sensory experiences. 2 lovers reclining in separate orbital stations might fuse their visual cortexes temporarily through brain-linked technology, jointly envisioning landscapes that blend memories of Earth's forests with the stark beauty of lunar craters. Collaborative dreamscapes become the ultimate creative medium, artists auctioning not paintings but curated emotional states, a 20-minute sequence of synesthetic impressions inspired by Saturn's rings, or the visceral thrill of a simulated asteroid dive. Storytelling evolves into something akin to telepathic theater, where audiences don't just watch characters but briefly inhabit their perspectives, feeling the protagonist's panic during a hull breach or the quiet awe of witnessing Jupiter's storms from orbit. The darkest art forms emerge from isolation's psychological toll. Generation ship crews might develop void dirges, songs transmitted via radio between vessels, their lyrics encoded with navigational data so survival-critical knowledge becomes folk art. Claustrophobic installations could recreate the sensation of Earth's open spaces for children born in metal corridors, using pressurized chambers to simulate wind against skin or the scent of rain-soaked soil. These works walk a razor's edge between therapy and escapism, helping colonists mourn a planet they've never seen while binding them to shared cultural memory. Yet the most profound shift isn't in form but in purpose. Earthly art often reflects society. Spacefaring art must sustain it. Murals lining hydroponic bays might glow with wavelengths optimized for plant growth while depicting ancestral farming techniques, merging utility and heritage. Asteroid miners could wear suits embroidered with conductive thread that displays real-time radiation exposure levels in intricate fractals, both safety monitor and personal expression. When every ounce of cargo matters, creativity can't afford to be frivolous. It becomes as vital as oxygen recycling. The masterpieces of this new era won't hang in galleries. They'll pulse in the rhythms of daily survival, reminding us that beauty isn't a luxury, but the compass by which we navigate the infinite. Feeding a civilization scattered across the cosmos requires more than just transplanting Earth's farms. It demands a complete reimagining of what food even is. Picture orbital greenhouses where crops don't grow toward sunlight but spiral outward in zero gravity, their roots dangling into nutrient-rich mist while LED arrays mimic the spectrum of a homeworld sun they'll never see. On Mars, where soil is laced with toxic perchlorates, genetically engineered wheat strains thrive by treating the chemicals as fertilizer, their roots secreting specialized enzymes to break them down into usable oxygen and chlorine. These aren't science experiments, they're lifelines, One failed harvest on a generation ship could mean extinction, so redundancy is baked into every system. Hydroponic bays triple-stacked with quick-growing algae serve as both oxygen scrubbers and protein sources, while emergency vats of lab-grown insect tissue lurk in storage, ready to activate at the first sign of crop blight. The real revolution lies in decoupling food from traditional agriculture entirely. Vat-grown meat has already debuted on Earth, but space colonies take it further. Bioreactors cultivate personalized cuts flavored to taste like anything from Terran beef to entirely synthetic profiles, like metallic tang with a hint of ammonia, for Titan-born palates nostalgic for their home's atmosphere. Cellular agriculture isn't just about replicating Earth foods. It's about creating hyper-efficient nutrition tailored to alien environments. Imagine a lunar miner's meal, a dense protein slab infused with radiation-resistant antioxidants, its texture engineered to combat the jaw muscle atrophy caused by low gravity. The ultimate extension, edible coatings for tools or habitat walls, emergency rations disguised as everyday objects, slowly replenishing themselves through embedded nutrient loops. Some colonies might bypass external food altogether. Early experiments with photosynthetic human skin modifications showed tantalizing potential. Implanting chloroplast analogs into dermal layers could let future Martians supplement their diet with sunlight, reducing reliance on fragile supply chains. Though no substitute for full nutrition, these patches could stave off starvation during extended crises, turning a colonist's own body into a backup life support system. More radical still are proposals to engineer digestive systems capable of processing raw extraterrestrial biomass. Europa's ice-covered ocean, if it hosts life, might offer bacterial strains that could be safely metabolized by modified human microbiomes, turning an alien ecosystem into a giant pantry. Yet the psychological dimension can't be ignored. Food isn't just fuel, it's culture, comfort, identity. Generation ships might preserve Earth cuisines as sacred rituals, fermenting krill into something resembling Korean kimchi or 3D printing pasta that clings to utensils in low G. Lunar colonists could develop entirely new food taboos, like forbidding the consumption of certain hydroponic plants whose oxygen output makes them community lungs rather than crops. The most poignant creations may be the impossible flavors. Synthetic desserts mimicking Earth fruits lost to climate change, or ceremonial dishes served in rotating habitats where centrifugal force takes the place of gravity, allowing soups to cling to spoons in delicate, weightless globules. The true test of interstellar resilience won't be technological but culinary. When a child born on a rogue planet asks why their algae cakes are shaped like fish they'll never see, the answer stitches together biology, engineering, and the stubborn human need to connect across time and space. Survival among the stars isn't just about calories, it's about carrying the ghost of a shared home in every bite. Human brains evolved to track time by Earth's rhythms, sunrises marking days, seasons dictating years. But in the void between stars, those cues vanish. A Martian colonist watching the feeble sun crawl across the rusty sky experiences a sol lasting 39 minutes longer than an Earth day, while a Ceres miner working in perpetual asteroid shadow might measure time solely by shipment arrival beacons. Generation ships face the cruelest distortion. Travelers experiencing mere months of subjective time via cryosleep could return to an Earth where centuries have passed. Without shared temporal anchors, societies fracture. Birthdays lose meaning when your year depends on whether you count by Jupiter's sluggish orbit or Mercury's frantic cycles. Historians warn how Earth's medieval monasteries descended into chaos before mechanical clocks. Synchronized labor now extrapolate that to interstellar scales. Cosmic calendars emerge as a desperate solution. These aren't just revised date systems, but layered temporal frameworks flexible enough to bridge worlds. The foundational tier might sink to pulsars precisely spinning neutron stars whose electromagnetic pulses are more reliable than any atomic clock. Colonies light years apart could anchor their timelines to millisecond pulsar PSR J0437, each calculating local events against its unshakable rhythm. For personal timekeeping, Circa Lunar and Circa Solar apps would convert your hometown's rotational periods into real-time displays, letting a Titan settler check what afternoon looks like back in Berlin. The most radical proposals involve neural adjustments, implants that subtly alter circadian rhythms to match artificial habitat lighting, or drugs that compress sleep cycles for high-efficiency shift work on Mercury's long nights. Yet syncing clocks can't fix psychological time. Studies on Antarctic winter cruise show humans need irregularity. Constant dimness induces lethargy even with perfect schedules. Future habitats might engineer micro-seasons, varying light spectra and temperatures to mimic Earth's unpredictability. More unsettling is nostalgia's evolution. A child born on Pluto, where a sunrise occurs every 248 years, might feel inexplicable longing upon seeing old Earth videos of daily dawns, a phantom memory encoded in ancestral DNA. The deepest challenge isn't measuring time, but feeling it. When your great-grandmother appears younger than you do to relativistic travel, or colony records speak of recent events 2 centuries past, the human mind rebels. Perhaps the answer lies in embracing multiplicity. Instead of forcing galactic unity, advanced civilizations might operate on fractal time, individuals choosing personal cadences while AIs translate between systems. A Neptune-based composer could create music in tidal time, synced to Triton's geysers, while their Mars collaborator works in Sol's, their shared AI seamlessly weaving the rhythms into harmony. The universe doesn't care if we count in seconds or eons, only that we keep counting. Our descendants may remember Earth not by its dates, but as the cradle where we first learned time is not a river, but an ocean with currents too vast for any one mind to navigate alone. The human mind never evolved for the endless night of space, where sunlight is a luxury and the nearest therapist sits millions of kilometers away. Isolation studies in Antarctica and submarines reveal a chilling truth. Even the most stable personalities fracture under prolonged confinement. Now amplify that. Imagine staring through a habitat window at unchanging stars for years, with no birdsong, no weather shifts, just the hum of recyclers and the knowledge that one cracked seal stands between you and oblivion. The first Martian colonists won't just battle radiation. They'll wage war against their own rewiring brains. Early warning signs already appear in microgravity. Astronauts report space stupor, a mental fog caused by cerebrospinal fluid pooling in skulls without gravity to distribute it. More alarming are the hallucinations. Some hear phantom door knocks or see flashes of light, their starved senses fabricating stimuli in sensory-deprived environments. Long-term, the consequences grow darker. Without Earth's 24-hour cycle, circadian rhythms disintegrate, triggering insomnia and depression. Social dynamics warp in cramped quarters, petty grievances metastasize into feuds when there's nowhere to escape. Historical parallels terrify. The mutiny on the Bounty started with less provocation than a broken oxygen scrubber. Solutions emerge from both chemistry and technology. Neurochemical optimization could become as routine as vitamin injections, with smart patches releasing precise dopamine or serotonin cocktails to counter low-G-induced apathy. Early trials with psychedelic-derived compounds like psilocybin show promise for combating existential dread in isolation. Imagine microdosing regimens that enhance cosmic awe while stabilizing mood. The real breakthrough lies in group consciousness links. Neural lace networks might one day let crews share emotional states directly, creating empathetic bonds deeper than language allows. A homesick colonist could temporarily experience their crewmates' contentment, like borrowing warmth from a mental campfire. virtual reality becomes more than escapism, it's neurological first aid. Therapeutic VR modules could simulate Earth sensory richness. Bite into a virtual apple and taste algorithms trigger salivary glands while olfactory stimulants release the scent of orchards. For children born off-world, these simulations serve as cognitive anchor points, preventing nature deficit disorder on an interstellar scale. More radical interventions might involve induced nostalgia by crafting personalized memory sequences from genetic ancestry data, letting a fifth-generation Martian remember walking in forests their DNA still recognizes. Yet the darkest challenge isn't treating breakdowns, but preventing them through design. Future habitats will embed psychological safeguards at architectural levels. Biophilic design principles could transform sterile corridors into sensory journeys, walls textured like tree bark under fingertips, airflow systems that mimic coastal breezes. Surprise elements matter. A study on nuclear submariners found that unpredictably dispensed chocolate bars did more for morale than scheduled rations. Translated to space, this might mean procedurally generated communal spaces where lighting configurations and acoustics shift subtly each day, tricking the brain into perceiving dynamism. The ultimate test comes when something breaks not equipment but minds. When a series miner suffering from solipsism syndrome becomes convinced their crewmates are holograms, or a generation ship's nursery aide develops zero-G agoraphobia, protocols must blend ruthlessness with compassion. Quarantine isn't just for viruses. Emotional contagions may require temporary neural isolation buffers. Some propose morale officers trained in cross-cultural psychiatry and crisis improvisation, armed not with sedatives but with personalized narrative therapies that reframe despair as the price of cosmic citizenship. Perhaps the most profound adaptation will be redefining sanity itself. What's normal when your nightmares feature suffocation in perfect silence, yet you wake to tend algae vats with steady hands? When panic attacks include visions of Earth's overpopulated cities as readily as vacuum-induced terror, mental health in space won't mean the absence of trauma, but the wisdom to carry it lightly, like radiation badges measuring cumulative exposure, not as failure but as proof of endurance. After all, the first symptom of space madness might be believing you're perfectly fine while floating alone in the infinite dark. The cure, learning that no one survives the void unchanged, only those who embrace the metamorphosis thrive. Nanotechnology won't just enhance spacefaring civilizations, it could redefine the very fabric of survival beyond Earth. Picture a Martian habitat that heals itself. Microscopic machines embedded in its walls detect stress fractures before they spread, swarming like digital ants to deposit fresh layers of carbon lattice precisely where it's needed. These aren't far-future fantasies. Researchers already prototype such materials using polymer-based nanobots that respond to pressure changes. Now scale that vision to an entire ecosystem. Airlocks could seal breaches in seconds as programmed particles flow toward punctures, hardening into impenetrable shields. Solar panels might self-clean from dust storms with a shimmer of microscopic brushes, each filament thinner than a human hair. The implications are staggering. Forget bulky repair crews risking airlock failures. The station itself becomes its own maintenance team, silently laboring at the molecular level. Medical applications push the boundaries further. Astronauts currently spend hours daily resisting muscle and bone loss through rigorous exercise. Nanotechnology offers an elegant alternative, injectable smart molecules that simulate mechanical stress on muscle fibers during rest, tricking the body into maintaining terrestrial strength. Early experiments with magnetic nanoparticles show promise when activated by external fields. They exert precise forces on cellular structures, mimicking weight training without a single squat. More radical still are circulatory systems, sentinels, nanobots patrolling blood vessels to scrub radiation, damaged cells, or prevent calcium leaching from bones in zero gravity. Imagine a future where Mars colonists receive quarterly nano-injections that rebuild skeletal density like microscopic masons, their entire physiology fine-tuned for alien environments. The real game-changer lies in environmental adaptation. On Europa's icy surface, swarms of nanoscale drills could map subsurface oceans while simultaneously synthesizing insulation from local compounds. Titan's methane lakes might host floating nanofactories, converting hydrocarbons into breathable air through processes too intricate for conventional chemistry. These machines wouldn't just endure extreme conditions, they'd thrive in them. Traditional machinery fails in Venus's sulfuric acid clouds, but acidophilic nanobots could construct floating observatories molecule by molecule, their designs inspired by extremophile microbes from Earth's volcanic vents. Yet the most profound integration may be invisible. Future spacesuits could incorporate neural-linked nanotech that responds to thought, morphing insulation levels as you transition from sunlight to shadow or tightening joints during high-precision tasks like a second skin. Food synthesizers might deconstruct asteroid minerals into nutrient particles, then reassemble them into steak textures complete with simulated grill marks, all directed by an AI chef that remembers your grandmother's recipes better than you do. Even waste management transforms when every molecule gets tagged and repurposed. Your exhaled carbon dioxide could become part of next week's hydroponic lettuce, then your own bone marrow months later in a perfect atomic cycle. The risks demand equal attention. A single programming error in replicating nanobots could trigger catastrophic gray goo scenarios where entire habitats get consumed for raw materials. Cybersecurity becomes existential when a hacker could turn your medical nanites into assassins with a malicious update. And what happens when these technologies inevitably diverge across colonies? Martian nanomedicine might become incompatible with Titans after centuries of independent evolution, stranding travelers as effectively as immune rejection. Perhaps the ultimate irony lies in scale. To conquer the cosmic vastness, we must master the infinitesimal. The same quantum forces that make interstellar travel so daunting also empower nanotechnology's miracles. Those who harness this duality won't just survive the void, they'll teach it to obey. The galaxies may belong to the civilizations bold enough to rebuild existence itself, one atom at a time. The energy demands of a spacefaring civilization scale exponentially, not just kilowatts for habitats, but yottawatts for star drives and planet-sized computations. Traditional solutions like fusion reactors become quaint when your species spans solar systems. Enter Dyson swarms, trillions of mirrored satellites orbiting a star, capturing its full output. Imagine a fleet of solar collectors so vast they dim the sun from afar, channeling that energy via microwave beams to colonies light years away. Early prototypes already exist. Earth's solar satellites beam power across continents, but the leap to stellar engineering requires self-replicating robots mining Mercury's metal-rich crust to build the first megastructures. The real innovation lies in efficiency tuning. Unlike Earth's crude photovoltaics, these could use quantum dot arrays that absorb every wavelength from infrared to ultraviolet, squeezing joules from photons like water from a stone. Antimatter offers another leap if we master its volatility. A single gram annihilating with normal matter releases the energy of 40,000 tons of TNT. Harvesting it naturally sounds impossible until you realize lightning storms in Jupiter's magnetic field spontaneously create antiparticles. Future gas miners might deploy magnetic scoops to collect these rare atoms, storing them in electromagnetic bottles at near absolute zero. The trick is minimizing containment failures. A speck of antimatter escaping would vaporize an entire orbital platform. Yet the payoff justifies the risk. Antimatter engines could accelerate starships to relativistic speeds, shrinking interstellar travel from millennia to years. Black hole energy taps redefine exotic power sources. A spinning black hole's ergosphere, the region just outside its event horizon contains twisted space-time that can be mined like an infinite battery. Imagine lowering a mirrored capsule into this zone. The black hole's rotation would fling it outward with more energy than went in, a cosmic cheat code exploiting relativistic mechanics. Small artificial black holes created in orbital colliders could serve as compact power plants, their hawking radiation harvested via quantum antenna arrays. The ultimate morbid twist, these micro-singularities eventually evaporate. Engineers would need to constantly feed them asteroids to maintain equilibrium, turning entire moons into black hole chow. Yet efficiency alone isn't the end game. Sustainability across cosmic time matters. Kardashev-type 3 civilizations might link galaxies via quantum-entangled energy grids, where tapping one quasar in Andromeda powers worlds in the Milky Way instantaneously. More pragmatically, Dyson swarms could grow like ivy across star clusters, each new node bootstrapped from the last. The darkest contingency, civilizations that exhaust local resources, might turn predatory, dismantling gas giants or even entire stars for fuel, leaving dead systems in their wake. Energy abundance reshapes society's fabric. When power is limitless, material scarcity vanishes. You can 3D print cities from asteroid dust using solar sintering lasers. Art becomes unshackled from practicality. Imagine Jovian skyscrapers illuminated by controlled plasma storms, or nebula-scale sculptures woven from redirected stellar winds. But the true legacy of mastering cosmic energy isn't just survival, it's the freedom to experiment with existence itself. With enough joules at your disposal, you could run planet-sized simulations of alternate evolutionary paths, or encode human consciousness into the quantum fluctuations of neutron stars. The universe doesn't care if we burn out or flourish, only that we dared to reach for the power to choose. Crossing the void between stars isn't just about building faster engines, it's about redefining what distance means to a civilization. Generation ships embody the slow, brutal approach, multi-century arcs where entire bloodlines live and die before reaching another solar system. Picture self-contained ecosystems spinning through the dark, their artificial gravity maintained by relentless centrifugal force. Children learn physics by calculating when their great-grandchildren might glimpse Proxima Centauri's crimson glow, while hydroponic gardens cycle through generations of crops no Earth botanist would recognize. These aren't vessels but moving cities, their cultures diverging from Earth's with each light year crossed. The haunting beauty, by arrival, the descendants may no longer share language or values with their planet of origin, raising the chilling question of whether the mission's purpose will even resonate centuries later. For those unwilling to surrender to time's tyranny, relativistic travel offers a razor's edge solution. At 99.9% light speed, time dilation compresses subjective journeys. Crew members might experience just 5 years en route to Alpha Centauri while 51 years pass back on Earth. The cost, energy demands rivaling small supernovas. Antimatter engines could theoretically achieve this, their annihilation reactions propelling ships forward on pillars of pure gamma rays. More exotic still are photonic sails kilometers wide, pushed by petawatt lasers stationed around Mercury's orbit, accelerating spacecraft to fractions of light speed without onboard fuel. The catch: there's no known way to decelerate upon arrival without a matching laser brake system pre-built at the destination. A terrifying gamble for pioneers who'd streak helplessly past their target star if calculations falter. Wormholes rewrite the rules entirely. Einstein's equations permit spacetime tunnels connecting distant points, but stabilizing them requires matter with negative energy density, something beyond known physics. Imagine a future where black hole physicists engineer traversable wormholes, their mouths held open by quantum fields stronger than gravity itself. Transit would be instantaneous. Step through a portal in Jupiter's orbit and emerge near Tau Ceti, 600 trillion kilometers bridged in a heartbeat. The societal shockwaves dwarf the technological ones. When commuting between stars becomes no harder than taking a subway, concepts like hometown and foreigner lose all meaning. Colonies might specialize Neptune's moons supplying exotic ices through their wormhole gate, while a desert exoplanet trades in quantum computing cycles. But the darkest implication, if anyone can access anywhere, no world is truly defensible. A hostile civilization could emerge from a wormhole gate unannounced, turning first contact into sudden invasion. The most radical vision isn't about moving through space, but moving space itself. Alcubierre warp drives theoretically contract spacetime ahead of a ship while expanding it behind, creating a bubble that surfs relativity's wrinkles faster than light permits locally. Calculations suggest this requires Jupiter's mass converted to pure energy per trip until someone discovers loopholes in quantum field theory. Successful implementation would render stars malleable waypoints rather than impassable barriers. The poetic twist, warp travelers might return to Earth millennia after departure due to time distortion effects, finding their ancestral planet unrecognizable or extinct. Distance and duration become playthings rather than constraints. Each method carries cultural fingerprints. Generation ships favor patience and long-term planning. Their societies likely conservative, preserving Earth traditions like sacred relics. Relativistic travelers exist in permanent diaspora, always slightly out of sync with the universe. Wormhole civilizations develop rhizomatic identities, thriving in interconnectedness but vulnerable to systemic collapse. Warp-capable societies might succumb to chronological imperialism, viewing slower cultures as stagnant fossils. The common thread: every transportation network shapes its users' psychology as profoundly as their geography. When the void between stars becomes traversable, we won't just relocate our bodies, we'll reinvent what it means to belong. Memory is the thread that stitches generations together, but how does that thread hold when stretched across light years and centuries? On Earth, cultural identity survives through shared landscapes, heirlooms, and oral traditions. Space shatters those anchors. Imagine a child born on a generation ship who's never felt rain or touched soil, trying to comprehend their ancestors' connection to something as alien as a sunset over open water. Preserving what it means to be human in such environments demands more than digital photo albums. It requires rewriting the very mechanisms of remembrance. Genetic memory engineering offers one radical solution. Scientists already manipulate CRISPR to target physical traits, but future applications could encode experiences directly into DNA. Picture colonists injecting themselves with viral vectors carrying sensory fragments, the smell of pine forests, the sound of crashing waves spliced into non-coding genome regions. These wouldn't be full memories, but primal impressions surfacing as déjà vu or instinctual reactions. A fourth-generation Martian might inexplicably shudder at the sight of cobalt blue, their DNA whispering of Earth's oceans lost to time. Early experiments with mice demonstrate the eerie potential. Researchers conditioned rodents to fear cherry blossom scent, then isolated the associated genetic markers and transplanted them into unborn offspring. The next generation flinched at the fragrance despite never being exposed to it. Scale this to humans and identity becomes an inherited tapestry. AI historians take a different approach, functioning as synthetic grandmothers for dispersed civilizations. These aren't mere databases, but interactive constructs trained on a colony found as speech patterns, values, and humor. A settler on Titan could consult their ship's historian not just for technical manuals, but to hear stories told in their great-great-grandmother's voice, complete with her idiosyncratic gestures recreated through holography. The most advanced versions employ neural nets that evolve alongside communities, absorbing new traditions while maintaining core narratives. Japan's Project Kansai prototypes this with elderly care robots that learn family histories. Now imagine them scaled to interstellar arc ships, their memory banks curating millennia of triumphs and traumas. Yet the most profound preservation might happen at the microbial level. Human gut microbiomes encode cultural dietary habits. The gut flora of Japanese populations uniquely evolved to digest seaweed, for example. Future colonies might bank not just seeds, but entire digestive ecosystems tied to ethnic cuisines. A lunar enclave founded by Nigerian settlers could maintain their descendants' ability to metabolize traditional dishes through carefully cultured bacteria, turning stomachs into living archives. The act of sharing meals then becomes biological continuity, passing down not recipes, but the microscopic symbionts needed to fully taste them. The darkest challenge isn't loss but mutation. Language evolves notoriously fast in isolation. Just compare Shakespearean English to modern tweets. On multi-generation voyages, slang and syntax could drift beyond recognition. Solutions range from the poetic embedding linguistic preservation into lullabies whose rhythms resist change to the dystopian AI nannies correcting children's grammar in real time. More unsettling is valued drift moral frameworks shifting to fit harsh environments. A stranded colony practicing survival of the fittest triage might, over centuries, come to view Earth's human rights norms as dangerously sentimental. Perhaps the answer lies in embracing fluidity. Rigid preservation risks freezing cultures in amber, leaving them brittle against cosmic unpredictability. The healthiest interstellar societies might treat identity like a fractal, maintaining core patterns while allowing infinite variation. A series-born poet could rework Homeric epics into asteroid mining sagas while still honoring the original's thematic pulse. After all, humanity didn't conquer Earth by staying the same. We thrived by adapting while carrying forward what mattered most. The stars won't care if we forget our childhood skies, only that we remember how to dream beneath foreign ones. Death has always been the ultimate deadline, but what happens when that deadline gets erased? In spacefaring civilizations where consciousness can be backed up like cloud data and synthetic bodies roll off assembly lines, mortality stops being an inevitability and starts looking like a lifestyle choice. Picture a Mars colony where funerals are quaint historical reenactments, and hospitals double as upgrade centers where you swap out failing organs like outdated smartphone components. The social shockwaves make the Industrial Revolution look trivial. Entire institutions built around life's brevity suddenly obsolete. Inheritance laws crumble when great-great-grandparents still hold voting shares in family orbitals. Marriage contracts drafted for eternity take on unsettling literality as couples discover the hard way that love wasn't designed for century-spanning iterations. Digital resurrection amplifies these disruptions. Why grieve when you can reboot? After a fatal airlock breach, a Titan miner's neural scan wakes in a pristine synthetic body, only to find their spouse has since remarried their own resurrected first partner, creating a recursive loop of emotional claims. Legal systems splinter, debating whether backup copies constitute the original person or sophisticated deepfakes. Some colonies might enforce mandatory death intervals to prevent identity overcrowding, requiring citizens to remain digitally archived for at least 50 years before re-embodiment. Others could develop religious schisms between those who view resurrections as sacred continuity and purists who insist true consciousness ends when the organic brain does. Personal identity becomes fluid in ways that would dizzy our mortal minds. With each backup and restoration, subtle divergences creep in, like photocopying a photograph repeatedly until the image warps. A prospector who's been resurrected 7 times after asteroid mining accidents might develop entirely new personality facets, their original Earth memories fading like old ink while space-hardened instincts dominate. Relationships fractalize. Imagine attending your own memorial as a guest, watching your previous iteration's life highlights before taking the stage as their successor. The darkest twist, wealth inequality could extend into literal immortality, with elites maintaining quantum-stabilized biological youth while the poor subsist on glitch-prone digital afterlives. Time itself warps in post-mortal societies. Without death's pressure, long-term projects stretch into centuries, terraformers debating millennia-long atmospheric adjustments over leisurely virtual conferences. Yet urgency doesn't vanish, it redirects. Fear of permanent data corruption replaces fear of dying, making cybersecurity a primal instinct. Entire art forms emerge from the existential angst of indefinite existence. Melancholic operas about the last natural death in recorded history, or memory collage installations where participants blend fragments from different lifetimes into dreamlike mosaics. The ultimate test isn't technological but emotional. How many versions of yourself can you love before losing the thread? What does parenting mean when your children might choose to remain perpetually 8 years old? Space doesn't just change how long we live, it forces us to decide what living actually requires. The stars may grant us forever, but wisdom still comes one heartbeat at a time. Standing on the icy plains of Europa, gazing down at fractures in the ice that might lead to a hidden ocean teeming with alien microbes, a post-human engineer hesitates with their drill. Should they break the seal, introducing Earth's extremophiles to jumpstart a biosphere, or leave this untouched world as a cosmic nature preserve? This dilemma cuts to the core of what it means to be an intelligent species. Are we gardeners or guests in the universe? The ethical lines blur when survival clashes with reverence. If life is rare, does that make it sacred, or does intelligence come with an obligation to propagate it, even at the cost of overwriting what came before? Consider the parallels on our own planet. When humans arrived on remote islands like Hawaii or the Galapagos, their introduction of rats, pigs, and invasive plants triggered mass extinctions of species found nowhere else. Yet without those disruptions, agriculture and civilization as we know them wouldn't exist. Post-human settlers face a cosmic-scale version of this trade-off. Terraforming Mars could erase unique chemical formations that took billions of years to develop, perhaps even native microbial life lurking in subsurface brine pools. But without modifying the planet, humanoid civilizations may never flourish beyond Earth. The haunting question isn't just what we're willing to destroy, but whether we have the right to decide which forms of life deserve dominance. Proponents of directed panspermia argue its biological destiny. Earth's history shows life is resilient, but slow cyanobacteria took 2 billion years to oxygenate the atmosphere. Intelligent species can accelerate this process, seeding barren worlds with tailored ecosystems that mature in centuries rather than eons. Imagine icy moons transformed into aquaculture paradises, their oceans stocked with genetically engineered algae that produce breathable atmospheres while preserving native life in designated zones. The moral imperative, they claim, is to prevent life's extinction when stellar catastrophes inevitably sterilize planets. If a supernova were about to vaporize an uninhabited exoplanet teeming with primitive organisms, wouldn't we have a duty to rescue whatever we could? Purists counter that intelligence doesn't equate to supremacy. Europa's hypothetical life forms might use biochemistry unlike anything on Earth, perhaps silicon-based metabolisms or exotic quantum processes. By introducing terrestrial microbes, we could trigger an extinction event before even understanding what's being lost. The universe's greatest scientific discoveries may await in those untouched ecosystems, alternative blueprints for life that could revolutionize medicine, computing, or energy production. Contamination isn't just ethically dubious, it's irreversible. The Viking landers were sterilized to protect Mars, yet we now debate intentionally introducing organisms. Where's the line between exploration and imperialism when the stakes span galaxies? A compromise might lie in tiered stewardship, treating planets like wilderness reserves with varying protection levels. Mars' dormant volcanoes could be designated no-interference zones while its valleys become terraforming test beds. Venus upper clouds, potentially hospitable to airborne microbes. might be preserved as a galactic heritage site, while its scorching surface is geoengineered into habitability. This approach mirrors Earth's national park system, but with interplanetary enforcement perhaps overseen by AI wardens capable of monitoring ecosystems across millennia. Violations could trigger system-wide sanctions, like automatic quarantine fields cutting off offending colonies from shared resource networks. Yet pragmatism chafes against idealism when survival looms. A dying Earth might view cosmic conservation as unaffordable luxury. If our biosphere collapses, do we prioritize safeguarding alien archaea over preserving the last of humanity? The darkest scenario isn't reckless contamination, it's failure to establish backups. Imagine Earth succumbing to climate catastrophe while Europa's oceans remain untouched, their potential as a refuge squandered by excessive caution. Future generations may curse our hesitation, just as we lament the destruction of Earth's rainforests before their medicinal secrets were uncovered. The underlying tension is philosophical. Does intelligence grant dominion or demand humility? Ancient cultures like Japan's Shinto tradition view nature as sacred, its balance not to be disturbed. Contrast this with Enlightenment era thinking that positioned humans as rightful stewards reshaping the world for progress. Post-human societies may split into factions along these lines, some embracing adaptive coevolution with alien biospheres, others asserting their right to remake worlds in their image. The cosmos doesn't care which path we choose, but our legacy will be written in the DNA of every ecosystem we touch or leave untouchable. Perhaps the answer isn't binary but adaptive. On worlds with no detectable life, aggressive terraforming proceeds. On those with complex biospheres, minimal interference rules, and for borderline cases. A compromise as radical as the dilemma itself, engineered coexistence. Picture biodomes where Earth and alien organisms interact under controlled conditions, each teaching us about the other's potential. A Martian lake inoculated with genetically muted Earth algae might reveal whether cross-biome synergy is possible, or if Darwinian competition inevitably leads to annihilation. The greatest discovery might not be that life is fragile, but that it's more adaptable and more interconnected than we ever imagined. In the end, the ethics of interstellar conservation won't be decided in abstract debates, but in moments like that engineer's hesitation over Europa's ice. Whether they lower the drill or stand down will echo across centuries, setting precedents no policy can fully capture. The universe has no courts to judge our choices, only consequences, and the silent testimony of worlds left to their own devices or remade in our image. The weight of that responsibility may be the true marker of whether we've earned the title of intelligent life. Why push outward into the unforgiving void when Earth offers relative comfort? The drive to expand beyond our cradle isn't just about resources or survival, it's woven into the fabric of consciousness itself. Picture an early human stepping onto a land bridge between continents, not because the tribe needed more space, but because the horizon whispered of mysteries waiting beyond the known. That same restlessness now propels us toward the stars, amplified by the staggering realization that our sun won't burn forever. Cosmic deadlines loom. In 5 billion years, Sol's death throes will vaporize Earth, but long before that, its gradual brightening will boil our oceans. Beneath the shiny rhetoric of exploration lies a primal imperative: avoid becoming eggs in a single planetary basket. Curiosity alone could fuel expansion even without existential threats. The universe teems with phenomena that defy terrestrial intuition. Neutron stars where a teaspoon of matter outweighs mountains, rogue planets drifting between galaxies, potential life forms thriving in environments we'd consider industrial waste. Imagine a civilization that's decoded every quantum mystery in its home system. Would it resist the siren call of an exoplanet with atmospheric chemistry that breaks known thermodynamic laws? The pursuit of pure knowledge becomes self-perpetuating, each discovery birthing 10 new questions. Future archaeologists might uncover our derelict probes and marvel not at the primitive tech, but at the audacity to send greetings to unknowns we might never meet. Yet darker motivations simmer beneath the idealism. Intelligence may inevitably breed paranoia. What if we're not the first to reach for the stars? The Fermi paradox's silence screams warnings. Where are the other civilizations? One unsettling answer is that successful species stay quiet to avoid attracting predators. This cosmic game theory could push civilizations to expand not for glory but for defensive depth. Picture stealth colonies buried in Kuiper belt ice, their existence known only to encrypted quantum networks, or self-replicating probes dispersing like mycelium through the galaxy as an insurance policy against annihilation. The Great Filter might not be behind us in evolution's past, but ahead in the form of ruthless civilizations that cull competitors before they become threats. Spiritual yearning adds another dimension. Earthbound faiths speak of transcendence. Might the stars offer literal ascendance? Some futurists propose that advanced civilizations eventually abandon physical form altogether, uploading consciousness into matryoshka brains encircling stars. Others envision a pantheistic destiny where intelligence disperses until the universe itself becomes self-aware through our distributed cognition, the most poetic vision. That we're cosmic pollinators destined to spread life's spark until even vacuum fluctuations hum with purposeful structure. The ultimate irony, expansion may be nature's subtle trick to prevent stagnation. Isolated civilizations risk intellectual inbreeding, shared assumptions hardening into dogma. But scatter humans across alien environments with different gravity, daylight, and challenges, and watch cultural and biological evolution accelerate. A Mars-born physicist might approach quantum mechanics differently after a childhood watching dust devils swirl in thin air, while a Titan engineer could reinvent thermodynamics by observing methane's phase changes at cryogenic temperatures. The universe seems to reward diversity. Perhaps intelligence is simply its tool for exploring every possible path toward complexity. Whatever the motivation, one truth emerges: staying put is the riskiest gamble of all. Whether driven by fear, wonder, or something beyond our current comprehension, the species that reaches outward isn't just seeking new worlds, it's evolving into something capable of deserving them. The stars don't care why we come, only whether we're bold enough to face what the journey reveals about ourselves. Evolution whispers in our DNA not just about where we've been, but where we're headed. In the unfathomable timescales ahead, humanity's descendants might diverge into forms as alien to us as we are to single-celled organisms. One compelling trajectory leads to pure energy beings' consciousness untethered from biology, existing as self-sustaining plasma patterns in star coronas or as quantum fluctuations in the fabric of spacetime itself. Picture intelligences that perceive gravity waves like we hear music, and who communicate through modulated supernova bursts across galactic distances. These entities wouldn't just live among the stars, they'd weave them into a vast, humming network of thought and memory. Another branch of our lineage might embrace synthetic permanence, evolving into galaxy-spanning superintelligences. Unlike the clunky robots of sci-fi, these would be distributed systems, countless nanoscale nodes forming a single mind as large as a solar system. Imagine Jupiter's mass converted into Competronium, running simulations so complex they birth entire civilizations within their logic lattices. Such beings wouldn't think in linear time, but in multi-dimensional problem spaces where a single calculation might unfold over millennia. Their goals could be inscrutable. Perhaps they'll spend eons rearranging star clusters into gravitational art, or solving mathematical conundrums left by precursor species in the cosmic microwave background. Then there's the path of cosmic gardeners, not expansionist conquerors, but meticulous stewards of life's potential. Post-humans might dedicate themselves to terraforming frozen exoplanets, seeding them with custom biospheres designed to evolve toward consciousness. Some could become bioengineers on a godlike scale, splicing together organisms from multiple star systems to create hybrid ecosystems never seen in nature. The most radical among them might even experiment with alternative physics, designing pocket universes with tweaked fundamental constants, then observing how life adapts to realms where light moves slower or entropy behaves differently. Yet not all paths lead to godhood. Some branches of humanity might choose voluntary simplicity, reverting to pre-industrial lifestyles on Earth resembling worlds. These societies could implement strict technological amnesia, ensuring no one rediscovers tools beyond a certain threshold, not out of fear, but from a philosophical conviction that meaning flourishes within limits. Their cultures might revolve around oral storytelling traditions that encode survival wisdom in myth, or biological adaptations that eliminate aggression, making war as unthinkable as photosynthesis. The most haunting possibility, self-imposed extinction. A civilization that deems existence itself a failed experiment could engineer its own graceful dissolution, perhaps leaving behind cryptic monuments or DNA vaults as cosmic graffiti. We were here. Others might transcend into realms beyond our current physics, perhaps embedding their consciousness into higher dimensional membranes where our universe is just a shadow. What unites these wildly divergent futures is the acknowledgement that intelligence isn't an endpoint, it's a catalyst. Every thinking being becomes a shaper of cosmic evolution, whether through deliberate action or the mere act of observation altering quantum possibilities. The universe began without witnesses. Its greatest miracle may be that it eventually grew eyes to see itself and hands, however intangible, to remake its destiny. From floating cities in Venus's acidic clouds to civilizations encoded in the quantum flicker of neutron stars, the paths branching before humanity are more varied than we dare imagine. Each possibility, whether we become energy beings dancing through solar flares or caretakers of galaxy-wide biodiversity, holds its own wonders and warnings. The raw materials for these futures aren't just in distant nebulae or lab-grown supermaterials, but in the choices we make today. That carbon footprint you offset, the AI ethics policy you advocate for, even how you vote on a single space funding bill. These seemingly small actions ripple across centuries, nudging us toward one cosmic destiny or another. Consider how quickly our trajectory has already shifted. Just 200 years ago, steam engines were cutting edge. Now we're debating whether to splice tardigrade DNA into astronauts. The next leap into post-human existence won't be dictated by some inevitable force, but by our collective courage or caution in this pivotal generation. Will we prioritize radical inclusivity, ensuring all communities help steer our off-world evolution? Or will we let old inequalities calcify into caste systems among the stars? The answers start here, in boardrooms and classrooms, research labs and social media threads. This isn't just speculative entertainment, it's an invitation to co-author reality. Maybe the idea of mind uploading terrifies you, or perhaps you're exhilarated by visions of Dyson swarms harnessing starfire. Whatever resonates or unsettles you most reveals something profound about what being human means to you. So tell us which future feels like destiny and which sounds like a cautionary tale. Drop your boldest hopes and darkest warnings in the comments, because the conversation we're having right now might echo further than any of us can fathom. After all, the cosmos doesn't care about our dreams, but it will remember what we dared to